Well met.
Right, my first question for you, Mr. Brode, is why dinosaurs for the new expansion?
Well, for years, as we've been pitching different expansion ideas, different members of the team have been trying to get dinosaurs into some expansion or another. We talked about things like trolls and like, oh, they ride raptors. Let's do dinosaurs and trolls. That's way better than just trolls. And eventually, the designers just said, you know what? What if we just did all dinosaurs? And we thought about like what that expansion would look like, and Ungoro Crater felt like the perfect fit for an expansion focused around dinosaurs. And we started to explore that a little bit more. We wanted to get elementals in there, really focus on this primal world. We wanted to make the dinosaurs feel a little bit more like our own, so we had them start adapting with elemental energy that really added to the feel of the Hearthstonification of this world. And that's where it all stems from.
And I think they both came together amazingly. The set looks really good. So I have a few questions regarding set design for Ungoro. My first question would be, we all know that Blackrock Mountain, the Grand Tournament, and League of Explorers are leaving us soon. So these are very big shoes to fill. There are a lot of fan favorites like Flamewaker, Justica, and Reno especially. So what are some of the problems and considerations in designing Ungoro when you have to take into account the good feelings that players had with these three sets?
Well, I think first of all, Wild's going to be really cool with this rotation. There's a lot of cards that are very interesting that I think are going to now. Wild is going to be very different than Standard. Standard is the kind of place where you want things to change every year and every set that comes out. Wild, you want to be able to use all your cards. It doesn't matter if things don't change as frequently because there's so many cards competing for spots in your deck that a new set isn't really going to change very much percentage-wise the total card pool. So in Wild, I think all those cards are going to be really fun still. I think Wild's going to be a really interesting new format after the rotation. But for Standard, we're looking at, okay, what's new? What's different? We're not just filling holes for cards that used to be in Standard but aren't anymore. We're trying to figure out what new strategies will be fun to explore for players who want things to be changing all the time in this format. So that's kind of the angle at which we approached what needs to be new and different versus what are we kind of replacing.
Yeah, great. So speaking of Standard, we know that the current meta is dominated by this Pirate Warrior deck, and the best deck to use against a Pirate Warrior deck would be like a Control Warrior, a slow, grindy control deck. However, these decks have been slowly edged out by Jade Druid. So there's Pirate Warrior and then there's Jade Druid supporting its rise. Both Pirate Warrior and Jade Druid seem to be completely viable in the new and upcoming Standard because their shell is still there. Has this affected the design of Ungoro? And could you maybe talk a little bit about how Standard will look like in the upcoming set?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't think that... I mean, we definitely have cards that are targeted towards some of the best strategies from the last set. Galaka Crawler just came out. It's very good against pirate decks. If you expect to see a lot of pirate decks, you can win a lot of games by putting Galaka Crawler in your deck. But in general, it's hard to predict what the meta is going to be like. And that means there's a lot of excitement, right? No one knows what's going to happen. There's lots of new cards. How are they going to affect the meta? There'll be a lot of experimentation when the new set comes out. And I'm very excited to see what players do with it. There's always going to be more players than there are Hearthstone designers. So we're going to be surprised by players sometimes. And it's exciting. It means that it's wide open. Jade Druid is not necessarily a very powerful deck. It's in our behind the scenes when we're looking at the numbers, it's just it loses more games than it wins. There are decks that get less play that have a much higher win rate than Jade Druids. So I'm not sure if it'll continue to get played a lot after the new set comes out. It's a deck that feels powerful and it's got a lot of exciting moments during the gameplay. But we'll have to see. It's not something I think that anybody can just say, oh, here's the meta, right after the new set comes out. Often it takes months for the meta to start really solidifying.
Right, and I'll be very excited to be brewing for Standard as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So continuing on our discussion about Standard, and the discussion on Pirate Warrior, I noticed that most of the reviewed cards, such as Pyros, the new Elise, and the quest cards especially, they're very value and mid-range oriented. Is this a conscious decision because of Reno leaving the standard and aggro decks still being pretty strong in the current meta?
Well, look, we just want to make cards for a lot of different deck archetypes, right? We want to make some cards that don't have an obvious use that players can explore some different deck types for, like the new card Shadow Visions, I think it's called, the new Priest card that we announced a couple days ago. It's not necessarily obvious what kind of deck that goes into, but it's very interesting to try and think about how to use it in a way that's most valuable. We are trying to make cards that would be interesting for lots of different deck types. Some people like control, some people like combo, some people like tempo or mid-range or aggro. There's lots of different categories of decks and fans of each of those types of decks. And so we're going to create cards for lots of different strategies.
Right. Thanks for answering that question. My next question for you would be, Ungoro is going to be the first set in this new standard in the upcoming year of the Mammoth. And being the first set, it's going to be around for the next 5 sets. It's going to be in standard for the next 5 sets. Knowing this, are there any considerations that the Hearthstone team had when designing Ungoro, looking into the far future?
Well, the bigger impact is that it's going to herald the beginning of a rotation for standard. And that means that some things that we were, often when we release a new set, you have some expectations about some of the cards in the meta, some of the decks in the meta that are relying on some cards from the expansions. That now those assumptions may be invalid, right? This deck that's very powerful, like Dragon Priest, for example, is a deck that gets a lot of its power and support from sets that are becoming exclusive to Wild here. So in a world without Dragon Priest and without other iconic decks in Standard, everything is kind of thrown out the window. And so that's the real big kicker as far as how we consider the set and what we're thinking about as it goes into it.
Yeah, no, I'll be really sad that Dragon Priest is leaving. It's my favorite deck.
Well, look, it's still fun to play in Wild. I think actually Wild's gonna be really interesting here. It's only 2 sets off Standard right now, but when it's 5 sets off Standard, and archetypes like Dragon Priest and Reno that's the place you can go to play them. I think it's gonna be super fun.
I think it's gonna be super fun as well. And I think related to my previous question, I think the Hearthstone team did a fantastic job with Whispers of the Old Gods, because it was in the exact same situation that Ungoro was in. It started a new standard and it stuck around for a new set, and it's continued to become very relevant. So great job. For my next question, one mechanic that I really loved about Ungoro is Adapt, because I really enjoyed Discover and the controlled RNG aspect. And I think the Hearthstone team has heard of maybe complaints from players about the RNG aspect of Hearthstone, and I think this controlled RNG is really fun and leaves some control in the player's hands. So was Adapt a conscious decision from the Hearthstone team, and is this possibly a philosophy that you will have moving forward with the game?
I mean, it is. I think that randomness does some great things for Hearthstone. If there's no randomness, let's just pretend you ordered your deck and it was the same order every game. The games feel more samey every time, and also they reward memorization of lines of play, right? Okay, I always play this, then this, then this, then this against this deck. And when you can't rely on things being the same every time, you have to be better at problem-solving unique scenarios. This type of mechanic where there's some randomness involved, you just don't know what you're going to be able to do. You don't know what your opponent's going to do. You don't know what cards you're going to have in your hand or what you're going to draw next. You have to anticipate things better than other players and adapt to your current situation better than other players in order to choose the right thing. And lots of types of randomness can do that, but this one is very clear. It gives you a couple different choices. It seeds things randomly, right? You don't know which 3 random things you're going to get, just like spare parts. You don't know what spare part you're going to get. But then the best players with that would get you into a state that's new, that you've never been in before. You've never had these choices against this board before. The best players are the ones that take advantage of that scenario better than than others. And so in that way, I actually think that randomness increases the problem-solving skill in some cases, if you do it right. And it decreases the kind of the memorization or just the rote, okay, I just do these things every time I'm in the situation, I do these 4 things. And I think that that's one of the better ways that we use randomness. And there's lots of ways I think add value to the gameplay experience of randomness, but this one in particular increases, I think, some amount of problem-solving skill in some situations.
Yeah, I agree fully. Like stuff like Discover really keeps every game fresh and exciting for me. I don't know for sure that I will definitely lose against a better player because sometimes the luck will turn in my favor.
Sure. Yeah, there is luck, right? Sometimes luck makes a big impact, but there's also a lot of skill. They're not like a slider. Right? It's not like you're like, oh, there's more luck and so skill doesn't matter at all. There's games that have no luck and no skill, like tic-tac-toe, and there's games that have incredible amounts of luck and incredible amounts of skill, like poker. And Hearthstone's one of those types of games. It's got a lot of luck, and it's got a lot of skill, and sometimes those feed into each other in interesting ways.
Yeah, I agree fully with that. Right. I only have one last question for you, Mr. Brode. Your recent rap video was fire. So have you considered a full-time career in the musical industry?
Yeah, briefly, and then I realized that no one would pay to see my raps.
I would pay to see your rap video.
My dream fizzled out. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Brode.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for talking.
That's all the questions I have for you. Thank you,
Awesome.
and see you. And I'm very excited to play Ongoro.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.